Hey everyone, quick announcement here before we jump into the podcast. We just want to let everybody know that we are hosting a online buckboard. So you can sign up for that on our Facebook page. There's a link there, take you to a form. Really easy to fill out. We just need a little bit of information and then a $5 entry fee. And then we are going to pay out $500 via Venmo to the first place winner. Second place gets a Tacticam reveal camera. And third place gets a $50 payout as well. And we're going to have random prizes given throughout the contest. You can sign up from now until October 4th, and then or November 4th, excuse me. And then if you harvest a buck between November 5th and the 27th of November, you can just send us the info we require on it, and you are eligible to win that $500 payout. So yeah, go ahead and look at our Facebook page for that, or shoot us an email. We can send you the link as well. Entry fee is accepted via Venmo right now. So if you have any other questions, let us know. We'd love to have everybody join this fun little online buckboard. Hey everyone, we are back again for another episode of Lessons of the Woods from my dad's cabin. Well, that's not actually what we're called, but Lessons of the Woods by 10 Point Whitetails. I'm your host, Dylan Porter, and I have my co-host here, Kyle Weber. And today we're going to be talking about weather. But first off, we're out of my dad's cabin still. Same place we recorded the last one. Mm-hmm. Following morning, Dad's got a pretty nifty system out here. We're not going to go into all the details, but basically we got a security camera on a fresh carcass. Wake up in the morning, and what do we got happening?
We got coyotes in, kind of trying to enjoy themselves. So
3 coyotes come in. Minnesota, you can shoot coyotes any day of the year, all day long. Within reason, there's certain stipulations for actually shooting coyotes at night, which you can do in Minnesota. Unless they've changed the law since last I looked that up, but I think it has to be like a shotgun or something, and no artificial light, and it's some goofy stipulations. But we had 3 coyotes come in, barely awake, new to you gun, haven't shot before, and just things didn't go as they should have, and coyotes got away. But stuff happens.
Supposedly.
Allegedly. And if we keep looking up, it's because we have the monitor up there. We're not gazing off into the distance. We're like, is there going to be a cow come in while we do this? Let's find out. Anyway, so here we are, and we're going to talk about weather today. When to hunt, when not to hunt. So do you want to kick us off?
Sure, weather.
Wait. We are also sponsored by Wallhanger Taxidermy of Cable, Wisconsin. Unless he changes his mind by the time this comes out. Then I said it anyway, so. Okay.
Weather is really important to read to gauge the high percentage days compared to low percentage days. So everybody talks about tree stand getting lots of pressure and being overhunted and stuff like that. So if you're sitting on low percentage days or bad weather days, you're just adding more of your scent out there, more of your entry and exits, more chances for you to educate the deer. So you want to really focus on the good weather days, and I don't mean like what's nice to us, but the good weather that creates good hunting percentage, a good chance at hunting percentage. So preferably what I would like to see in a week time, you see a day or two that goes from the 70s, for example, like right now, highs in the 70s, and then all of a sudden, on Wednesday, the high is 55 or 50. That means cold front has moved in, which means usually I have a northwest wind, which is ideal for 2 of my stands. And you wait until that day to hunt. Now, there's a little bit of a conversation about whether you hunt the night before that system comes through or after that system comes through, but that really cues you in on you should be sitting, if it comes through on a Wednesday, you should be sitting that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because you're going to have good high percentage days of sitting, and you should see a lot of deer activity during the daylight. When you look at your weather, you also want to look at the pressure, high deer movement, in my general...
in your experience?
In my experience, high pressure, and especially when the pressure is moving up, that usually creates a lot of deer activity. But, we talk about snow. I think when it's snowing is a great time.
personally for me, my favorite time to sit is when you get about a half to inch to 2 inches of snow while you're sitting. Oh, I love that. It's just it adds a magical stillness to the air. Nice light snowfall. I'm not saying windy blizzard, but a nice light snowfall with the big flakes.
Yep.
And I really enjoy it, and I've seen a lot of nice deer when I'm having those sits, and the deer are more comfortable in that type of environment because the snow's masking their footsteps. It's not the crunchy, loud snow. They're not stepping on leaves anymore. It's cool, which they like. Their winter coats coming in more and more every day. So a lot of it's going to boil down to, are the deer comfortable? What makes the deer comfortable? Deer by nature are paranoid schizophrenics. They are terrified of everyone and everything. Everything's going to kill them. And that's basically how they survive, is that mindset of, if I don't run away, I'm going to die. So they want to be comfortable. If they think, I can just sneak around and nobody's going to notice me, it's nice and quiet, I can hear for a long ways. They think, snow's masking their footsteps, is masking everything else too, but they think they can hear for a long ways, whether it's a stick break or whatever. And they feel a lot more comfortable in that type of situation. So snow is a good one. Windy days, in my experience, you just don't see as many deer. Or if you do see deer, they are on edge. So if we're hunting on a windier day, even yesterday right away, the doe, they came out, not yesterday, Wednesday. Yep. When they came out, those two does were a little bit more on edge because it was still windy, the leaves are slapping together, and they can't hear. They rely on their hearing for probably 40% of their survival skills, I bet, is ear. I'd say probably 40% ear, 40% nose, and then 20% eyes.
So, to paint that picture of what happened on Wednesday, we were literally getting ready, putting camo on and stuff like that, and we're looking outside, and the wind's almost howling.
Yeah.
It's a pretty steady, hard wind. All the leaves are moving, all the trees are moving, and it's hot. It wasn't supposed to get that hot, but I think it was pushing that 70-degree weather.
It felt like it in the sun. I mean, if you stepped in the shade, it was cold, but the sun had some power, no clouds in the sky.
Yeah. So you look at that. As you're getting ready at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the weather's telling you it's not a good day to hunt. So I would recommend in a normal situation where you're not short on time and you can wait and you have patience, you don't sit that day. But also you need to predict what's going to happen at 5 o'clock when it's game time, when it's that pure hunting hour.
Yeah.
So it's windy, it's warm, and we get out to the stand and it's generally uncomfortable. I think we took our boots off, we took a couple layers off, and we were sitting there.
I was using you for shade.
Yeah, I was all in black, so I was pretty warm.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable. What would tell you everything's going to happen is that's not the deer day.
Yeah.
But at 6 o'clock, the sun kind of hit the tops of the trees. The wind died down considerably. It became very enjoyable for us, comfortable-wise. Mm-hmm. And we also started seeing those deer. And so we've been here and basically on stand, or one of us has been on stand since Monday. And not that it was the best weather day, but it was that night was the night to sit. That was where everybody's seen deer.
Yeah. Deer
were moving. But if you just decided at 2 o'clock based on what you had
to skip it,
you would have decided to skip it, and that ended up being up until today's Friday. Today's Friday. Today's Friday. So Wednesday night was the only night that the deer have moved.
Yeah.
And you would have looked up at the weather. So it's really you looked up at the weather and you decided not to go. So it's really important to know. Well, it's this now. It's this here. I'm 15 minutes from my property. What it's doing at my house isn't what it's doing there.
No.
Once you're in the woods, the wind changes. That wind can howl, but it can be at the canopy. It's not affecting inside. So that's a variation. Now, ag and fields and stuff like that, you're going to get affected by wind, but wind direction can change in those couple hours. So you have to predict within a week of when that cold front, your high percentage days are going to happen. Mm-hmm. But then you also have to be on your toes for your daily or within your hourly. Like I said, 2 o'clock, we'd have said, don't go sit. But at 7 o'clock, it was pretty beautiful. And that was the deer hunting day. That was the day where they were all moving. For whatever reason, I think the fact that they're just hunkered down, they're getting, at some point, they have to move.
They have to.
But you have a lot of different situations. You talk about that light snow. You got to talk about light rain. Now, a torrential downpour,
they'll move if they have to, but they don't like to move in that either. Same with the blizzard. They don't like to move in the really bad weather.
And they won't go out into a food plot because they're vulnerable. They're out in no man's land, vulnerable to everybody, and they can't hear you. They can't see you. I mean, if it's snowing and it's a blizzard, it's harder. I do like those days sometimes. I do like hunting the adverse weather some days. Right before we came up here, I sat a couple nights and I had some spotty storms come through, but it was kind of a torrential downpour. For 15 minutes. This cloud would come over and just dump water, and it was the only night so far this year that I didn't see any deer. It was just, there was too many things. It wasn't steady, and that's I guess let's go with that. We talked about consistency last night and kind of conditioning these deer. If you're out in Montana where it's windy, the deer aren't going to care that it's windy.
Yeah.
They're used to the wind. They've changed their situation. But here in Wisconsin, it can be 0. There could be no wind. So when it's 30-mile-an-hour gusts, they're gonna be affected by that.
Yeah.
And when I sat right before coming up here, we had sun, we had rain, we had big winds, no winds. Everything was changing constantly, and those deer don't want to get up out of their beds and get into a vulnerable situation and have that weather change when they're not back to the wall prepared for it. So those are days you just want to avoid. I mean, I was sitting more to get content and more to see what was happening, but you want to avoid those days. So you pick your best cold front day, you pick your high percentage days, and try to get where that weather is consistent.
Yeah.
And try to be. You're gonna guess wrong a lot of times.
Yeah.
But
and it's not to say that you won't shoot a day on those adverse weather days or where it's not perfect weather. For at least for the deer, you might still shoot a deer. Probably have shot deer. I'm sure there's guys who shot deer when it's 90 degrees out, and it's deer moving, it's sunny, whatever. But we were saying at the beginning, it's a high percentage versus low percentage. On the days where the deer aren't comfortable, that's a low percentage chance of them moving. We had a buck one time in the preserve that was a 1.5-year-old buck, and he was born late, not doing well. And he didn't care if it was 90 degrees out. He didn't care if it was pouring rain. He was on that food plot as much as he could all day long because he needed to eat, he needed to catch up, he wasn't feeling great, little spike buck. And he'd go lay down in the middle of the food plot and lay there for an hour in the middle of the food plot. Because he's like, here at noon, nobody picks on me.
Yeah.
Nobody else goes out here, so this is where I'm going to go. Yep. So there's always the exception to the rule. We can lay out a lot of rules, but there's always the exception to the rule because deer are deer. They're not, you can't pinpoint on, with a spreadsheet and say, well, these are all the factors and this is what's going to happen. So the deer are going to move on this day.
Yeah. So
more time in the stand, more butts in the stand, you're going to have better results. But if you only have specific days to hunt, pick those high percentage days.
Yeah.
So we went on a hunt one time in the preserve, and it was a September slump. So previous 3-4 days hadn't had a lot of deer movement. And then we get one day coming through where it's going to give us about 2 inches of rain maybe throughout the course of the day. A nice, slow, long rain. And it's cool. And we get on stand early, and the deer are moving at 4:30. And when I say deer, I mean all of them. And then I still got the footage of it. Beautiful footage of deer coming in the rain, eating the soybeans. The bucks are feeling good. I got one buck on camera. He shook, and his whole body, the rain came off. Mm-hmm. And it's like a halo of, because there's a little bit of light, and it caught that. And a big halo of light spread around him. And just some of the coolest footage I've ever got.
Yep.
But the deer were moving during the rain. So a light rain, light snow, in my experience, those are the best 2 times to go out.
Yeah, and usually that's justified by the fact that there's a front here or coming through. So they're trying to get up before that weather system comes through. So the light rain tends to say that the system's coming, the pressure's rising, and we're going to get up and beat that. So when we get back to our bedding area, we can get comfortable and stay there for extended amount of time.
Yep, stay there, chew their cud with the good hot food they just ate.
Yep.
And then they're comfortable for a longer period of time.
Yep. So, oh crap, you were talking about something.
The rain.
No, we're talking about high percentage. So
Yeah.
you talk about the days you have to hunt, which are tend to be weekends. But if there's going to be a day or two that you call in sick, you want it to be worth. Like your boss is going to get mad if you're missing every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get mad. But sometimes that high percentage shot, a high percentage day, is on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
But you don't want to if during a hunting season you don't want to walk in and walk out 100 times.
No.
There's 100 times you educate the deer. It's 100 times that you teach the deer where you're at, how you're getting in, that they're being hunted. And a big mature buck, once he figures out he's being hunted, and whether that's a giant pile of corn that he's been shot at 3 times in the last couple of years, he's going to cue into that. So you want to sit as little as possible. And now with cell cameras nowadays, you don't have to go in.
No.
Because that sends all the information to you. So the farther away from the land you are, the farther from the tree stands you are, the less you're affecting it. Now you only go sit 1, 2, 3, 5 times, and you harvest your animal. Now you haven't educated any of the other deer. You've had a successful hunt, and you haven't had to miss work. You haven't been away from your family for 100 days. I mean, people enjoy being in the tree stand, and that's the purpose of hunting, is to enjoy yourself and be out there in the nature and enjoy that. But if you're also trying to harvest an animal, you don't want to burn that stand out or burn that property out. Yeah. So high percentage day is key, and reading the weather can gauge, can help you gauge what days those are.
Well, what day your odds are, you have a higher percentage chance of shooting a deer. Yep. The deer are going to be moving more and everything else.
How about fact or fiction? Moon guide. Hunting, I have one spot where this is relevant, but how do you feel about hunting the moon?
I have never paid attention to the moon when I'm hunting. Ever. Deer are creatures of habit, and they are creatures of the night. They do like to move and be out at night. So often when you see them come out in the evening on your evening sit, excuse me, that's their first time moving out of the woods to get food for the day.
That's the start of their day.
That's the start of their day. Mm-hmm. And now they'll stay out there all day, all night long. They might go, they'll eat, they'll go lay down, chew their cud, they'll come back, eat. They have to fill their stomach 4 times.
Yep.
To fill all 4 chambers. So they will take their time, they'll spend all night out there, and then they go back in the woods and chew their cud, and then they browse and chew their cud and browse, and then they repeat. Yep. That's what deer do.
I think...
So, in the moon, if the moon is bright, I can't say I've seen more deer moving at night or not.
So, based on just trail camera evidence on my end, I think hunting the moon guide is irrelevant.
They gotta eat either way, and they're not gonna eat during the day. They're gonna eat at night.
But what does happen is when that so they don't have great vision at night. They can't see like it's daylight.
No.
But at night they have definitely a significant advantage over a hunter or predators and stuff like that. They have the advantage when it comes to that. But when that when that moon is high and full, we can see. We can stand there and see clear as day. So that shows how much better. When it's pitch black and we can't see anything, deer can see.
Yep.
So imagine when we can see. They obviously have a better advantage. And I really do think that when it's a full moon, high, bright, and it's not cloudy, I do think the deer activity does increase at night. But I don't think that means that they move earlier. I don't think that means they move before shooting hours. I just think there is activity at night for them to they'll maybe push their comfort zone a little bit because they just have that much better sight.
Yeah.
And my justification for that is when the full moon is out, I get more trail camera pictures. They're out there longer. They're not trying to move and keep hidden. They're comfy.
But those are all still pictures at night.
They're all still pictures at night. So hunting the moon is irrelevant because that's just making the deer go out at night. Well, if they get to go out at night and just hammer down on maybe some of the riskier food plots, riskier egg, and they get to hammer on that till 5 o'clock in the morning, they don't need to come out at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning when you're hunting.
No.
And they don't have to come out as early because they got all night to feast. The lights are on for them. So I actually think the moon guide topic is actually a flop, except for the fact that, yes, when it's a full moon, I actually would avoid hunting.
Yeah.
If it was a full moon so if the full moon was Saturday, I would probably not hunt that weekend. I'd just stay out of there, not even help them.
But now if the full moon was on Saturday, but it was going to rain all afternoon, that's a go sit. Because they're not going to move later because of the moon. But now it's raining and they're comfortable all day during the day. Go sit, because they can't see the moon. I don't think they keep track with a calendar and say, well, it was at 3/4 yesterday.
Right.
But it's like, oh, this is a comfortable day. We're going to go move.
But I think when the moon comes out, the deer activity goes tonight.
Yes.
I think more of the deer activity goes tonight. And if they're full, they got a full stomach. Why do they have to get up at 4:00 in the evening and get out there?
Yeah.
They're full. They don't have to. If the night before they've filled their stomach, chewed all their cud, enjoyed themselves. I might go out at 8:00, but I don't need to go out at 4.
Yeah.
So yes, if there's outstanding circumstances like rain or a cold front coming in, but full moon, I'll actually avoid those 2, 3, 4 days and just stay out of there, just because I know all the deer activity is going to be at night.
I might have to try to keep track of that, but I've never. It's not something I've ever really looked into because I just go sit.
Yep.
But that's something to keep an eye on and see if it makes a difference. But in my experience, it hasn't really affected the daytime hunting as much. But it depends on how patterned the deer are and everything else. So there's a lot that goes into that. In the preserve, we've not really noticed a huge change.
Well, so let's talk about the weather in the preserve this week. So you guys always say that there's a September lull.
Yep.
That lull is relevant to a food source for the most part.
It relies on the food source. Yeah.
So, but we're talking about weather. So this week it's been 50s for highs, and we've just about froze every evening.
We had frost, killed my tomatoes. Got cold.
So the weather's, you would think 50s are highs, 30s. That's pretty chilly. The deer are going to move, but yeah, we've struggled to get deer moving.
Yeah,
we have one evening sit where the deer were moving. All the pictures are at night, and the pictures aren't anywhere near the tree stands.
No.
Your dad had mentioned that there was some in the standing corn, but they were there and they were bailing out of there, so they would have been out before sunrise. So it's been pretty steady here. We haven't had any. I mean, the temperatures have kind of fluxed, but
we haven't had any rain. We haven't had any snow. It's been pretty consistent temperatures between 35 and probably 60 degrees.
Yeah. So I really think the next in the preserve for that situation, the hunter that's here, the next time a system comes through, they're gonna have all the deer activity, every deer they can imagine out in front of them. They're all gonna be moving and traveling a fair distance. And that's how you'll see all these deer. But it's been definitely a struggle this week to have
just deer move, period.
Monday through Friday, we had one evening sit that had deer movement.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, it's tough, but if you focus on high percentage days for sitting, you're not educating your deer. I don't know if I'd follow the moon guide. But, and it depends on, weather he talks about your location. That one day I sat, when we had kind of torrential rains, I sat in my hang-on. If I would have sat in my hang-on stand, I'd have had a miserable sit. If I'm miserable, I'm not comfy, I'm not sitting there still, I want to get out of there, so I'm,
Yeah.
Luckily I sat in the Titan, which is an enclosed box stand, and I was comfy, I was half asleep. It was kind of the rain hitting the blind was serenading me to sleep, but depending on that weather, you want to be comfortable because you're being an effective hunter if you're comfortable. Yeah. So the hardcore guys will sit in the snow in negative 20-degree weather. They're hardcore.
But the deer, when it gets cold, the deer have to move because they're hungry. They have to move. So you're going to have success in the cold, but I don't see the point in sitting in a torrential downpour.
Right.
You can go way back to the woods, torrential downpour. I just don't see the point in it.
So, good point. But on a off the what and people want me for, off of hunting the weather, how can you use weather to your advantage while working on the property? By checking your cameras, baiting your deer, working on the property. I said working on the property twice. I like to go if I'm going to work on the property, check cameras, anything like that. 10 and 2.
Yep.
That's what I focus on. But if I can go out, well, it's raining, so moisture holds scent. So that's why a wet soil, a doe or buck pees on it. It holds that scent. It holds that signal to the deer. But when it's raining, it's really washing and absorbing that scent away on you.
It's diluting it off.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if I can go out between 10 and 2, and it's raining, and I mean not just a mist, I'm talking a pretty good rain where I'm going to be wet by the time I get back, that's when I want to go out there. If I want to walk my trails, put my boots on the ground, and get involved with whether I'm checking cameras or whatever I'm doing, working on the tree stands, because we're eliminating that scent.
You're eliminating the scent, and you're eliminating your sound.
Yep. You listen in the woods when the rain's hitting all those leaves. And if it's a decent downpour and it's between 10 and 2, where are those deer at?
They're in their beds. They are in their beds, chilling.
And I'm not nowhere near them. Yeah. So that's an effective way to get in there and using weather to get anything you need to get done on the property. Get in there, check your cameras. Using that rain and that time frame to get in there without
spooking them, without having the possibility of them walking up on you while you're working. And another thing you can do too, on the flip side of that, you can go do your work when it's terribly hot out.
Yep.
Because then they're going to be back in the woods. They're not going to move at all. You have a wider window to do the work if it's terribly hot out.
Yep. And they're going to come out later when it cools off. They're going to go to bed earlier, so you have this bigger window, and they're not going to be that. There's not going to be that random grazer that comes out when it's 90.
Yeah.
If you talk about the rut and weather
has no existence, no bearing on the rut. At least not for the bucks. They could be 105 degrees out.
Yep.
It could be 40 below.
Yep.
The bucks have to do what they got to do during the rut.
And as any man knows, if you were limited to 1 week, or what's the rut? 9 days?
Barely.
We're not talking post rut and pre rut and staging and
yep.
all of that. We're talking about
the rut is
we're talking about breeding.
5 to 9 days.
So 5 to 9 days. You got to go a whole year, and you got 5 to 9 days. Are you going to care if it's hot?
No.
Are you going to care if it's cold?
They're going to get out there and get her done.
And that's why, in Minnesota, you're actually the week after the rut or before the rut?
We're the week of the rut, our rifle season. So typically, our rifle season starts, we'll have a Saturday or a Sunday, Monday sit. I can't remember if it starts on Saturday. It might be Saturday, Sunday. And then, Saturday, Sunday sit, pre-rut. And then by about Wednesday, peak of the rut.
It's full bore.
So, and I can have a long conversation about why that should not be that way.
Yep.
But that's the way it is. And you get the most deer moving through the rut.
And you said, onto that point a little bit though, you do say that negatively impacts because a lot of bucks are harvested because they're running around dumb. They're running around with their
Majority of the bucks harvested in Minnesota, a crow just flew like right in front of the camera there. It was like full wingspan, so that was pretty cool. Sorry. So, in Minnesota, just going to touch on this briefly because this could be a whole podcast. I think it's like 60 to 70% of the deer harvested are opening morning. So when 70% of the whitetail deer are harvested, a lot of those are bucks. A lot of areas in Minnesota are bucks only right now. Or a buck and a doe or whatever. But so many people shoot their bucks opening morning that you are actually negatively impacting the genetics of the whitetail deer herd because you're shooting the bucks before they get a chance to breed. So when you shoot, let's say a 10-point yearling and a spike buck step out on the field, right? This is going to be the quick version. You shoot that 10-point the 10-point yearling, and now he doesn't get to breed the doe. Now, we in a question of the week, we talked about spike bucks being spike bucks, and that's not necessarily a genetic disadvantage or genetic trait, being a spike buck.
Yeah, but obviously a 10-point yearling has a better genetic potential than a spike buck yearling.
Yes and no. If they have the same life, yes.
Yes.
But based on what your visual evidence is, that 10-point yearling is better. So, you want him to breed your doe.
Mm-hmm.
But if you shoot the 10-point, because everybody's got to have antlers on the wall, they want to have the 10-point, and they like to say, oh, I got a 10-pointer, but they won't tell you it's this big.
Yeah.
They say, oh, I got a 10-pointer, I did good. Now that yearling buck goes off and breeds that doe, and he might not be lesser genetics, but he could be. But white-tailed deer were designed to fight for the right to breed the doe. So if you shoot your 2- and 3-year-old bucks opening weekend, now all your yearling bucks are going to go breed the doe. And now your 2- and 3-year-old can have almost the same genetics as the yearlings. You know, they're going to be in a single area, they're going to be half-brothers, they're going to be cousins, I mean, they're going to be all related. But those 2- and 3-year-olds have proven we can survive. We are stronger. We're bigger, better. They've made it further. So they have what I like to call a survivability gene. You want that gene to reproduce.
Yep.
You want the biggest, strongest genetics to reproduce. So when we shoot the small bucks, or all the bucks opening weekend, they don't get to breed, we're genetically downgrading our herd every year. Now in Wisconsin, you guys are the week after the rut, which is a much better way to do it. Yeah, it's a little bit colder, but who cares? Who cares? You're out hunting. Everybody's got heated tree stands now. Yep. I mean, you saw when you drove around here, what is there, a box stand every quarter mile?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Every corner of a field there seems to be one.
So it's not that we're going to freeze to death.
Right.
But we're kind of getting off topic. We can go in depth on that at another point. But,
so I know I want to go with that. We're going to go with that. This is good. How can a hunter accommodate themselves to weather? We talk about box blinds.
Yeah.
I have a Titan. It was amazing to sit in that Titan when it torrentially downpoured. It was great.
Yeah, you're not getting wet.
But to that, if you're uncomfortable in the weather, if you're uncomfortable in your weather, you're not going to have a good sit. You're not going to have a quiet, still sit. So sitting in the right stand per the weather helps.
Oh, absolutely.
Late season comes up and it's snowing and it's cold. An enclosed stand like a Titan or a TR outdoor blind, you can put a heater in and you could be comfortable. The deer get used to these blinds, right? I mean, as they sit there for 365 days a year and nothing hurts them out of it, they get used to them and get comfortable. So now you can sit in it, you're concealed and you're warm, so you're going to have a longer sit. So we do it at the preserve. We get in with the 4-wheeler, but we stay till it's pitch black no matter what. Whether you harvest in the first 5 minutes of your sit or when you're hunting right before dark, or if you're harvesting right before dark, you wait till the dark to sit because that's the routine. That's that consistency we talk about. So if you get in your stand, if I would have sat in the hang-on stand that night and it torrentially downpoured, I would have been miserable. I don't care if the deer were moving. I don't care if every deer in the book was moving. I would have been miserable, saturated with water. Mm-hmm. I would have probably gotten down.
You've been sitting there shivering, shaking.
Yeah.
You got
so now you get down. Now you're leaving before dark, and that's you're breaking your consistency. You're breaking the conditioning of the deer because now these deer are like, oh, I know I know we're good until dark. Then we kind of bail.
Yeah.
So having an effective sit is weather dependent, and sitting in the right stand, I don't always like sitting in a Titan. Your visual is harder. It's a different situation.
You can't hear.
What?
You can't hear.
Can't hear.
Yeah.
You feel crowd. We sat in a little pop-up blind this week.
Yeah, Tuesday night.
And we felt not only very vulnerable, but it was very tough to see or film anything that was going on. So you have to base your decision on where you're sitting on that weather also. You know, as the late season comes, I'm going to sit more in the Titan because I can put a heater on and not affect myself, not affect the situation, but I can be comfortable and sit there and have a longer, healthier sit. When it comes to the rut, whether it's post-rut or, if it's gun season in Minnesota pre-rut or the rut, and it's Wisconsin's right after the rut, anything can happen. Like you said, the Bucks do not care what is going on. They got 5 days to do their thing, and they're going to do it. The sun's up. They're on the road.
Yep.
90 degrees, 20 degrees. They don't care. So the longer you sit,
the better your odds are.
The better you are, the better the odds are, the more deer you're going to see, because a deer can walk in at 11, a deer can walk in at noon.
Buck can be chasing a doe, and he might run her a half mile, and you'll end up in the middle of a field somewhere.
And you're going to see different deer. So what the point of that is, sitting in the right stand based on weather, so you can have a good, effective sit, is important.
Yep.
If that's a box blind, do it. I don't care if you sit in a box blind. I don't care if you sit in a tree stand. I don't care if you sit on a ground blind. As long as you're having a good, quality sit, you're going to be, at some point, successful.
Yeah.
So, I just want to touch on that.
No,
Stand choice.
it's a good thing to touch on, because we can talk about the deer being affected by the weather, but the hunter gets affected by the weather as well. And if you're not comfortable in your sit, you're going to move early.
Yep.
And then you're done. And especially if you're going to take a kid hunting, if the kid's not comfortable, they're not going to have fun.
Yep.
And if a kid's not comfortable, they're going to be maybe complaining, maybe making noise. They're going to make the sit harder. The deer are going to be more likely to spot you. So keep your kids comfortable. I think you said when you took Flynn out, you even had him have a tablet and whatever. He has to sit there. He has to be happy.
Yep.
For that sit to be successful.
And we have to sit at the same time. So I have to go in at the same time, and we have to leave at the same time. So I got to keep a 7-year, at that point, 6-year-old occupied. Yes, I had him in warm clothes. I had a blanket. I had his tablet, headphones. He was good, and I had the heater blaring. I remember I was taking camo off. I was just dying. It was so hot in the fan. But it was bonding time for me and him, and that's all I was out there for. Luckily, a little buck walked in, and I was like, "What are the chances?" I got Flynn in the stand. There's a buck in
right in front of you,
right in front of us.
That was before you really even had the food plot going at all.
I had nothing going on there, so it's at the food plot location. But so I stand Flynn up and I shoot the animal. Me and him, we have a good moment. I actually turned around and looked at him after I shot, and he's shaking. I'm like, "Are you okay?" And I guess I didn't realize what was happening, but I was like, "You okay?" He goes, "I'm cold." That stand was 70-some degrees. He wasn't cold. He had pure buck fever.
He just experienced his first adrenaline rush.
Yeah, and that was so cool to have that moment. But that moment couldn't have happened in a hang-on stand.
No. He wouldn't have been comfortable.
Yeah.
So especially if you're taking a kid hunting, make sure they're comfortable.
Yep. And a box blind allows that.
Anybody for their first time. If I took my wife out hunting for the first time and she froze the whole time, she wouldn't have enjoyed it.
And she won't come back.
No.
So
we went out and put her in a box blind, and we had a heater going, and it was not a super cold day, and she was comfortable, and a buck came out and shot it. And especially if you're taking somebody for their first time, especially a kid, let them shoot whatever they want.
Yep.
I mean, if you got rules, you got goals, we've covered that, but you need to let young people get hooked on this, or else hunting can be it's a dying sport.
Yeah. I want to paint the picture. I'm going to paint the picture for you and tell me what you think. It's December. The high is 20. The low is -5. You're on a bait pile. I know, I understand from Minnesota now, their laws are different, but in Wisconsin, some of the northern counties, you can bait. So there's a bait pile of corn. High is 20. Low is -5. It's cold. What's that deer mindset?
I need food.
I need food. They'll be risky, right?
Yeah.
They're going to take risks. They're going to come out earlier, or they're going to come out more often because they're burning their cud. They're burning their food in their stomach faster to be warmer, so they need more. So their intake's more. So then you get consistent movement or a lot more movement on the deer's part. But that's why late season is fun, because you can see a lot, and then the deer concentrate.
Yeah.
They'll move to that food source. If all of the food source is covered in snow by me, but there's a corn pile, they're going to all move that way, and you see a lot more deer that way. But
we see a lot of activity on a good food plot in December.
Yeah.
Good food plot, every deer within the area is going to come, but also in December, if there's a soybean field across the road, you'll have deer that spend the entire day out there. I mean, all day long, all night long. They sleep out there, they stay out there, and that's what they do, because they're cold, food is right here. We're staying.
Yep, and you can pinpoint that if you're still hunting at that point, you can pinpoint that and have a pretty effective method. But that's all based on weather. How you hunt during the summer, you want water sources, and in the early season you want water sources and stuff like that, and you're going to avoid the hot days. Try to, at least.
Yep.
But you're going to hunt different. I think you basically ignore the weather during that rut situation. As long as you can have a good effective sit, so you're comfortable. Sit every hour you sit is a better day,
because they're moving, they're staying.
Yeah.
So I think we're just about out of time here.
Okay.
I think we covered everything we can about weather.
No.
Anything we missed? No,
but for this one,
we'll go in depth on more stuff later.
I can't wait for the podcast that we just start ranting and don't have any direction. We just let it go. All of a sudden we're talking about D&D and Fortnite and
football, and we'll just get way off topic. That'll be like a January thing.
Yep.
Anyway, so thank you for watching another episode here of Lessons of the Woods by 10 Point Whitetails. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Facebook currently. One day I'll get on other stuff, but we're busy people. And podcast comes out every week at 7 o'clock on Friday night, unless something happens and I don't get it done, but it should be good. If you want to send us any questions or comments you'd like us to talk about in the podcast, you can message on Facebook, send us an email at 10pointwhitetails@gmail.com. If you want to support the show, we should set up a Patreon or something.
Okay.
At some point.
Okay.
But best thing you can do to support the show right now is share, like, comment.
Yep.
So.
And put some questions out there. And
Yeah.
it'd be nice to have a podcast where we answer a bunch of questions by the viewers. So
Yeah.
maybe if they start sending them, we can
Start accumulating.
Yep. And start covering them. So.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next Friday.
Yep.
Sounds good.